very glad to have you here at the IMéRA for these 2 days. So many brilliant minds in a couple of square feet. That's great. The other thing is that I just, at a more theoretical point, I just went briefly over the abstracts, and I would say a couple of words about that. As a sociologist, and which means a little bit philosopher, I have in mind this harsh sentence of the French philosopher Merleau-Ponty, which goes like that: La science renonce à habiter le monde. Science refuses to live, to dwell in the world. Okay. It's a harsh sentence, but there is some truth in it. I think scientific is seeking for universal law, so is everywhere and so is nowhere. Okay, at the end of it. And it's very funny because in the French culture, or maybe European one, I don't know about the American, we have this figure of the scientist who is totally disconnected, and his name is Professor Nimbus. Just like the cloud, okay? He's stepping, stumbling over everything, but because he's not there, okay? So I hope you will be there. And I think one thing which will be at stake for these 2 days is the erosion of this line that depart and divide in between scientific endeavor and dwellers, okay? And I spotted 2 ways of tackling this matter and eroding this line. At some point, some of you say that, I think it's a physicist enjoying the fact that he could share and enlarge his mental construction with the artist. So it means that the scientists could, be joined in their own world. And on the other side is the side of awareness, la conscience du monde. Awareness is something that happens, or that could happen, or that sometimes doesn't happen, to citizens and dwellers. And so the infusion of scientific facts in awareness of dwellers is something which will be at stake these 2 days. This is my point. That's it.
Okay, by the way, that was Samuel Bordreuil. My name is Roger Malina. This is Annick Bureau, and we're part of the IMéRA and Leonardo organizations. So I'm just going to start with a few remarks that maybe help you understand a few things for the people who don't live here. So I'm actually an American, born in Paris, living here and in Texas. So I have a very hybrid existence. But I thought I would just remind the people who don't live here of a few facts. So we live on the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. Marseille has been a port city for many thousands of years. On the other hand, the Mediterranean is not a stable sea. It rises and sinks over the centuries. And in fact, as some of you will know, caves have been discovered along the coast that are below the current sea level. So indeed, in the last 100,000 years, there's been steady oscillations of the level of the sea. And the prediction is for the next century that the Mediterranean will keep rising by a few millimeters a year, which means that places that are deltas will get flooded. So the Camargue will be even wetter, and the Nile Delta will be even wetter as global warming leads to sea level rise. 5 million years ago, actually, you could walk to Africa because the Mediterranean was just a little lake. And so indeed, there's been a very evolving situation of the relationship of the land and the sea here. In the global warming predictions, these are the predicted changes in water runoff or water availability in the Mediterranean region. And the red is 25 to 50% reduction in water runoff. And so you can see both on the north bank and the south bank of the Mediterranean, we look forward to increasing water shortages. And so that will be one of the very real water facts in the coming decades. A few words about IMéRA. So IMéRA was founded a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago now. It's an Institute for Advanced Study, which means that we welcome residents here for periods of between 3 months, 5 months, 10 months, artists and scientists. We're part of a network of 4 institutes of advanced study in France, one in Nantes, one in Lyon, one in Paris, and one here, on different topics. And we have here developed a number of originalities, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Our T-shirt logo is the human condition of the sciences, the human dimension of the sciences. And in particular, we're interested in creating the conditions so that scientists in the physical sciences and the social sciences and humanities can work together, or between the arts and sciences in general. And so we position ourselves in this area of interface between different disciplines and how to enable collaborations. We live in Marseille, so we are here, as Samuel said, and so we're very interested in understanding how these questions make sense here, in specific in Marseille. So in current jargon, we're an incubator for experimenting inter and transdisciplinarity. We have a number of projects going on at the moment. The first one is on frontiers and borders. Cédric Parizeau, who's a political anthropologist, has been leading this multi-year project, looking at how we conceptualize, visualize borders today in a situation where geopolitical borders are changing, and of course, migration and immigration is a major social and political issue. And there are new ideas that come from areas of science, such as the science of complex networks and other ways that we imagine the structuring of social and physical phenomena. Samuel and I, from the beginning, have developed the art science axis of IMéRA, and this workshop here is within this context. And then, as I said, we're interested in exploring how these questions make sense here. And so we are interested in exploring Mediterranean ideas in a very diverse kinds of ways. Just to give you some idea of the residents who are here at the moment, Paola Cantu, who will probably drop by, elle est à Marseille en ce moment, Paola? Elle sera ici demain, she'll be here. She's in the philosophy and history of science, and particularly is very interested in epistemological issues and in interdisciplinary research. Anne Dupoteslin is an artist who lives in Cairo and is currently studying how the memory of Egyptians living in Marseille about Cairo can be represented. And so she's interested in the play of memory and place for people who have emigrated from other countries. Jim Chimjewski, who will be here later, is a nanoscientist and is currently working on artificial neurons. And he's going to talk, I think, tomorrow or today on anomalous behavior of water. Victoria Vesna, who's here. Victoria, can you just, in the front row, who's an artist who works both at UCLA in Los Angeles and in New York. I'm not sure what you're going to talk about today, but we'll find out tomorrow. Bruno Giorgini is in residence. He's a physicist and is working with a video artist called Maria Teresa Sartori. Merci, Samuel. And they work on the physics of the city, in particular studying human mobility, both pedestrians but also in transport systems, and how cities influence and structure human mobility. And they're in residence at the moment. Marouane Ben Milad from Tunis, who's working on the history of mathematics, in particular the flow of mathematical ideas around the Mediterranean over the last several thousand years. Mourad Diani from Morocco, who's working on the knowledge economy, particularly on the south bank of the Mediterranean, and looking at how you create ecologies of creative communities. Peter and Sue Richards, can you just show your hands, are artists in residence here. Peter, for many years, worked at the Exploratorium in San Francisco and has been working here on a project on the sense of place. And on Wednesday of this week, we will have a one-day workshop organized by Peter with the École de Paysage de Versailles, with a number of student projects that have been carried out over the last semester, looking at landscape architecture on Les Frioul, which is now part of a natural park. And so the whole question of how you interface the built and the human environment with the natural environment. And I think Marseille is now one of the few cities where the city is actually in a natural park. And so, and in fact, as we will hear on Wednesday, the biodiversity actually in the city of Marseille is very rich because there are many vacant lots where many things grow. Xaviera Tejerina Risso, who will be speaking, where is she? She's there, is in residence and is working with Patrice Legal, who will be speaking also, who's a hydrodynamics scientist. And Nicola Mai from Italy works in London and is part of the Borders and Frontiers project and has been studying the global sex trade and the European sex trade. But interestingly enough, has been creating films where he reenacts the interviews that he makes with the people that he interviews. So it's sort of a mixture of science and theater, where he reenacts the scientific investigations that he carries out. Two or three of the residents that are coming later, one is physicist William Horton, who will come in September, who works on fusion energy. And for those of you who don't know, about 100 kilometers from here, 150 kilometers from here, is the ITER fusion research facility, the biggest fusion research facility in the world at the moment, big international collaboration where they're trying to develop what's called break-even fusion, where as much energy goes in as goes out of the fusion reactor. Rachel Mayeri, who's a resident here a couple of years ago, will come back again. She's been working with primatologists, creating cinema for non-human primates. So she's interested in the differences between human cognition and cognition of other primates. Brian Connell will be coming, I have a typo there, from California, and he'll be working with Marseille 2013, not Marseille 2012, on the hiking trail project. The hiking trail project is a big project that's being laid out at the moment by a number of artists who are artist walkers. They've been laying out this trail. It's a big figure 8, which is a very interesting urban trail project which goes through very wild, natural landscapes, semi-urban landscape, urban landscapes, industrial landscapes. And so the people who take this trail will be doing very unusual hiking. And right now they're getting the rights of way through all the properties so that you can actually walk continuously through these very interesting areas. And Brian Connell will be doing an artist projects that are specific to locations on this trail. Water in Provence comes out of the tap through the Canal de Provence. There's a very dense network of canals that distributes the water around here. There are very long underwater tunnels, canals, one of which actually comes out here into the fountains at the Palais Longchamp, just below us. And over the last 150 years, Provence has been one of the places where the building of canals has really allowed the development of agriculture and the urban landscape in a very integrated kind of way. Some of the canals take the sewage out to sea, so there's actually some canals, I think, missing from there, which is the wastewater that is put out several kilometers under the Mediterranean. I should mention that actually under your feet, and Victoria, don't ask me if we can go there, is a huge reservoir in this hill.
Can we go there?
No, which used to be where the drinking water in Marseille was collected in this hill before going into the taps. It's no longer. It's now an empty reservoir, but we have. IMéRA would love to occupy les sous-sols of this hill. But we cannot get permission from the fire department to go down there. So one of the interesting scientific laboratories here in the region is called Antares. It's an underwater observatory. It's just off the coast outside of Toulon. And there are these cables with cameras on them which detect flashes of light in the water. And some of the flashes of light actually come from black holes in the universe, where we get high energy particles coming through the Earth, through the water, and they create flashes. And so this is used as an astronomical observatory, which is amazing, big underwater astronomical observatory. But it's also used by marine biologists and oceanographers to study the underwater environment off Toulon. And in particular, with the same cameras, they can detect bioluminescence in the water because the bioluminescence depends a lot on the water velocity, the temperature, the light levels, the organic matter. And so they're actually able to study through bioluminescence not only the marine biology under the water, but also the ocean currents and so on. So it's an underwater observatory that does both astronomy and marine biology at the same time. I'm an astronomer, so I thought I'd mention some of the research going on in Marseille on water in the universe. As you may know, in recent years, water has been discovered on the moon. In the craters, which are not illuminated by the sun, there's a little bit of water ice on the surface. And Olivier Groussin, who's a researcher here in the astrophysics lab, is part of the team that has been studying this water. It's actually believed this water is left over from ice comets that have landed on the moon and left traces on the surface of the moon. And so that's one of the research areas on water in astronomy here in Marseille. I mentioned the water comets. In fact, every day, hundreds of balls of ice come through the Earth's atmosphere and deposit water in the upper atmosphere. And it's believed, in fact, that most of the water on the Earth over the last billions of years has come from the fall of comets and water ice balls in the Earth's atmosphere. And these can be studied. This is looking down from the International Space Station, but you can actually see the ice and the water coming into the Earth's atmosphere. And there's a group here which has been studying these comets in the astrophysics lab. The other very important search for water in the universe here in Marseille is we have a group of scientists working on the search for what are called exoplanets. An exoplanet is a planet around another star. And in fact, the first planet around another star was discovered here in Haute-Provence, at the Observatoire de Haute-Provence in 1995. And there is a lot of interest now in discovering planets that are in what is called the habitable zone. And that means a planet that is just the right distance from its star so that water is liquid on its surface. And so there could be the conditions for the same kind of life that we have on the Earth. And the group here has been hunting for planets around other stars in the habitable zone. And in fact, I think there are now several such planets known where we know there is liquid water on the surface of those planets. I might just mention a small interesting fact. People are now discovering planets around almost all stars, which means that there are actually more planets in the universe than stars. There are more planets in the universe than stars. So that's kind of a nice context-changing question. So astronomers have been studying stars because we can see them, but in fact, most stars have several planets around them, and so as a result, there are more planets in the universe than stars. I just want to mention an example. Harold Vesselin, who's a former resident of IMéRA, did a project in our climate change observatory, which is in Haute-Provence, where indeed ecologists are studying the evolution of the local ecology, anticipating the global warming in the region and the reduced rainfall. And what they have done in this climate change observatory is they've created on the hillside a controlled experiment where on one hillside they reduce the rainfall by 30% and see how the ecology drifts compared to the hillside where they have not modified the rainfall. And Harold did an experiment, which maybe he'll tell us about, I don't know, in the climate change observatory. And so this is a second example of astronomers working with ecologists in addition to the underwater observatory. So I'm going to, I think, close there. Welcome to the workshop, and I will now turn it over to Annick.